podcast comes to you with thanks to our friends at Trafalgar Square Finance, leading independent specialists in mortgages and all types of property finance. Whether it's buy-to-let, development or bridging finance, Trafalgar Square can help you organise your funding for your next property project. Exclusively to listeners of Your Property Podcast, Trafalgar Square offer a free one-to-one consultation. So whether you are a portfolio landlord looking to raise funds on your existing portfolio, or if you're just starting out and want to find out if you are eligible for a buy-to-let mortgage, Trafalgar Square Finance can help. It's easy to book with one of their experienced consultants by simply visiting yourpropertynetwork.co.uk/finance. You can find this link in the show notes for more details.
Hello and welcome to Your Property Podcast. My name is Michelle Cairns and with us we've got Latoya McDonald. Hi Latoya.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. It's good to have you on here. And
thanks for having me.
I've heard you are going to be in our YPM magazine from January,
Yes.
which is exciting. So we are actually recording this on the 30th of November 2022. So if you are listening to this in January, then do check out Latoya's articles in the magazine. I'm going to tell you all about what Latoya has been up to and what she's going to be talking about today and in the magazine. So first of all, people who don't know you, Latoya, do you want to just give us a brief background of where you're based now and where you've come from and what you're doing in property?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Latoya, and as people can probably hear, I'm foreign. I'm from New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi, but I live down in Cornwall. So I'm based down there, and I've got a real estate background. I've been doing real estate in New Zealand since my late teens. I actually went into selling investment property, and after the earthquake, I went into doing not after the earthquake, after the financial crash, I went into doing auctions with family homes and deadline sales, and that's very exciting, very different to the auctions that are done here. So it's normally quite expensive, beautiful homes in New Zealand. So I went and did that, and then after the earthquakes, we moved to Cornwall. My partner's from Cornwall, so I didn't just randomly go on the globe and pick a place. My partner's
there are worse places to pick.
I love it here. So I'm here for good now. So yes, that's what we do. And when I moved to the country, took a job on the high street just to get to know the ins and outs of property here. Obviously, you don't use the word real estate, or you didn't back then very, very much. So I got to know that. And then in 2012, I hit the ground running with Rent to Rent. So that took off for me in a very good way. Say it changed my life. It is true. It really did. So took off on that, and I was actually in the YPN back then as well for my Rent to Rent business. That was quite interesting. And then since then we've gone on to do. We had an arm of the business doing service accommodation. It's now a letting agency that we have. Myself and my partner do HMOs in Cornwall. That's our portfolio that we have there, and doing commercial conversions. So that's the backstory. That's the
quite comprehensive then, and it's a kind of a story that is familiar to a lot of our members. How people start off with rent to rent, and then they get into HMOs and service accommodation, and then once people have replaced their income through property, I think that a lot of people, what they end up doing is they replace the job for themselves as well. And they kind of get stuck in this, the property business. They started by getting into property and then realized actually there were a lot of business skills that they didn't really know that they needed. And then they kind of, work on the business side and work on the business rather than in it. So I know that's where you're at the moment in terms of, been setting up lots of systems and processes and outsourcing for your own business and helping other people do that. So what was the kind of, do you remember the moment where you're thinking, right, this needs to be sorted, I need to kind of get all these systems in place? Or was it a case of you knew you needed to do that from day one?
Well, it's quite, I actually have quite a big admin background in real estate from New Zealand. So when I moved here and set up the business, and it did go quite big, quite quick. So I was kind of really scrambling to do that back end stuff, but I got there, and, I think systems and procedures alone won't free you from your business. They're not going to get you your time back. And I actually, I didn't set up my systems and procedures so well because I'm highly intelligent. I actually did it because I was going back to New Zealand to see people. I was going on holiday, and it wasn't for a week at a time, and it's quite a long time that I'm over there. So I needed to make sure that people could step into my shoes and run the business, because I didn't want any of my clients being affected. And at that stage as well, we were transitioning from this, quite a large rent to moving over to a letting agency. So I didn't want people to miss me or miss a service or anything like that. So back end stuff was pretty good. But it was not freeing me from the business. And I think a lot of people can relate to that as well, where, you can have some systems and procedures, but it's still, the business can still suck your time. And it's the outsourcing bit that then adds you to get your freedom back. But where I'd gone through and I'd hired staff members, like employed staff members for the property business, and then that didn't work out. And then I got another one and that didn't work out. And then I got a business partner. And so I've kind of been through the ringer a bit on all of that. And, I think the point though for me was, I'd missed some family events with my partner's family, and I'd missed some other things, and I was just constantly focused on the business, and it was just sucking all of me. And then one day I realized, and this might be offensive for some people, but I realized I was just fat and unhealthy. And I was like, God, when I moved to this country, I was really fit and healthy, and I took exercise as part of my life, and it just gone down the drain really. And I just looked at it and I was like, God, this business is really sucking everything.
Yeah, you gained the business and lost the lifestyle.
Yeah. So that's the thing, from the outside, people see you buying property and you got nice car and all of that stuff, and they go, wow, you're successful. And you think, well, I've got poor health, and it's not great, is it?
Yeah, it's that. What is the definition of successful? We could do a whole other podcast on that one. But in terms of your systems, obviously you had some admin experience beforehand. Do you want to just kind of touch on that then? Do you think that you did anything differently that helped you scale up in the end and helped you step out of the business later on, and anything differently than what you see other people doing?
Yeah, so I think I did actually spend a lot of time. I wouldn't recommend people do what I did in the beginning. So I actually had a manual, which took me ages to create. I thought I'll get this done in a month or whatever it was, and it kind of went on and on and on. So I did this manual where our staff members could go to the contents page and click on a particular topic. It would take them there and they'd follow the instructions. So now we don't do a lot of reading tasks or reading procedures. It's just a lot of checklists mixed in with videos. And I think, but either way, you've still got to record what you do and your task, what you're doing. If you're not recording it, you can't expect that to be handed over to a staff member or a virtual assistant, expect them to get on with it 100% perfect. So at some stage, you've got to take the time to actually record yourself doing that task, and then it's gone forever. Then you can hand it over. But I think a lot of people kind of struggle mentally with actually recording themselves doing that task. They think it's a workload and they think, I'll do it next week or whatever, but you just got to get on with that, and then you can hand it over then.
Yeah, you're doomed to carry on doing it yourself until you actually can hand it over to somebody else. And I think the new software like Loom and Camtasia and the new video recording software have just been a game changer for things like that. I think the manual was the old version 10 years ago, before we really had easy access to video recording. So and then okay, so you set up the procedures and the systems. Do you want to just kind of mention what a few systems that you use, software that you would recommend people who are starting out now? Where they
definitely. So one piece of, I don't know if it's software or app that I love is Asana. I love Asana, and a little bit nerdy, but it's visually beautiful. So I've tried a couple of others and I was like, oh, this is clunky, I hate it. Whereas Asana is beautiful, and the way that it works is lovely. So we use Asana for we actually use that within the letting agency to monitor things like tasks with, let's say we've booked a job with a tradesman, it moves along quite nicely and we can monitor it. And I could, if I have to step into the business to check up on anything, I can see it visually. So it's beautiful.
And it's so, like Asana, for people who don't know, that it's kind of like project management, and it's got checklists in there, and you can assign people to different tasks. It's, if people are familiar with Trello, it's like the next level up, I think, for that. Okay, so Asana for managing.
Yeah.
And then what other apps, or what's your favorite?
And then I think really is think about the starting point is to be online. So at the minute, I'm quite proud of our business being online based. We don't use hardly any paper anymore, which I quite like. And so I would say you've got to pick either Dropbox or Google Drive, something like that, to house all of your systems. You've got to pick one of those. And mine is Dropbox. I love it. So that's what I would recommend is, to start out, point one really is to find your online house.
Yeah, they I guess they do the same, don't they? G Drive. I started with Dropbox, loved it, and then have somehow ended up with G Drive. I also love that as well. So, but they both do the same thing, as you say, just organizing and systemizing all of your material, I guess. And then in terms of kind of the process of how things work, then, so any other favorite apps you've got?
Any favorite apps? Well, we use Asana, but we also have our management software as well. So we actually use Arthur Online. So that it is another set of procedures that our team have for within that. So, and I would say if you've got I'll rephrase, if you're managing for other people, you're taking a fee for people, I would say definitely get a management tool. For me, I am a very, not paranoid person, but like within my letting agency, people paying our company to manage their portfolio, their baby for them. And so it's very important for me that at a drop of a hat, I can print off messages. I can prove when things were done. If we need to go to court, I can have everything date and time stamped, and it's got the IP, everything. That to me is important. So if you're just doing your own portfolio, maybe you don't need to pay that kind of money. But if you are looking to manage for other people, please invest in your business. Please spend the money, because people are paying you to do a job. Do it properly.
Well, like you said, whether it's for other people or yourself, it is a business. And I think for some people, it's that catch-22. Do you start by getting the systems when you're starting out, even though you don't have a big portfolio? You might have one property, for example, or do you wait until you get bigger before you kind of upgrade and implement all these things? But sometimes it is easier, even if it's a bit more costly up front, it's actually easier to get used to the systems while you've only got one property, and then it is easier to scale. But I know it's hard, for people starting out and they don't have the cash to kind of invest in all these different systems. So just
I think another point that you've just touched base on there as well is, even if you only have a handful of properties, a lot of people in the property world go on about legacy and stuff like that, and you have to stop and think to yourself, well, if I died tomorrow, can my husband or my wife step in? Can my kids step in? Where do they find the logins? How do they run this property business? And I think, it can be easy to sit there and go, I've only got 3 HMOs, or I've only got a handful of buy-to-lets, so it'll be fine. But somebody's got to mop up that. You're not leaving a legacy if you haven't got bits in place. You're just leaving a mess.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to be really clear and organized. Okay. And so like moving on then from the systems and the processing to the outsourcing side of things, when how did you transition? Because a lot of people, they hear about how you can outsource and working with virtual assistants or assistants in UK based, offshore, wherever, but they are reticent, a bit nervous about there's lots of beliefs that come up about working with other people, especially offshore. So how did you make that transition?
Desperation. No, I'm joking. But like, I think it's important thing that you've mentioned there, because for me, I had heard people going on about Filipino VAs for ages, and I was like, oh, and I was interested, and I was reading stuff and I was watching, but something was stopping me. There was something in me that was, and I've got nothing wrong with, you know, outsourcing people, employing and all of that stuff, and I've got nothing about, you know, obviously I'm foreign, so somebody employs me, I mean, you know, obviously, but I think once I started to see there were UK based virtual assistants, I was like, oh, I'm comfy now. This is my comfy spot. And when I got talking to some of them, you know, and I tested the waters with people that had no property experience and people that did, and I started to find my groove then, and I was starting to, it's just like a conversation, isn't it? And you go, oh, I like this person, or they we're the same on these sort of things, and we match on that, and you just go with it, really. So I would say if people are going overseas and that feels like something they want to explore, do it. Or if they're like, actually, no, I'd rather have a UK based person who's got property experience, then explore that. You know, it's just you've got to feel it, don't you?
Yeah, there's lots of, you know, pros and cons, you know, whether you're working onshore, offshore, and, you know, working with people UK based, obviously you're on the same time zone. Apart from anything else, you know, they can make calls in the afternoon or evening and pick things up. And then obviously, you know, if their first language is English as well, that's a bit easier. And understanding the UK property market is another thing as well that you can get. But obviously, you know, you're paying a premium for that as well. So did you first of all start working with UK based assistants?
Yes. So I've been, I don't want to, you know, say it's all rosy. I have had some, you know, down moments with the UK virtual assistants as well. And I tried an agency, which did not end well for me at all. So I think it's like anything, you can't just have a go once. It's like when I employed a staff member and had a really bad experience, I still had to try again. Otherwise I was going to be working a gazillion hours, which it didn't have. So you've just got to pick yourself up and go, okay, I've got to learn from that, I've got to learn from this. And the virtual assistant I've got now, she's amazing, you know, and I don't, you know, I didn't rip her down on price or anything like that. I was like, you know, you're going to do this, and she's like, yep. So, you know, we just agreed it and moved forward with our lives. My life is now great. Her life's great. She's getting paid well, you know, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and do you differentiate? Because I would have imagined that someone UK based, I would just refer to them as a PA, the personal assistant, but obviously you've referred to her as a virtual assistant, and presumably she's just not located where she's in the UK but not near you. And
she's not near me, and you know, and she works for other clients, you know, she doesn't work for me. And that's another little thing I would say as well, is that when you are looking for a VA and you're going direct to them, I think it's important that they have other clients, because you do not want to be in that interesting area with HMRC. So I would say don't be put off by, I mean, that's a virtual assistant works for other people, you know, and embrace it, and you know, it either works for you or it doesn't, and you need to go and employ someone.
Yeah, and you mentioned there that you you know, there was lots of kind of trial and error with people with different types of experience. So did your VA already have experience of the UK property market, or did you train her from scratch?
Yes, so my VA that I have now, she's got experience of the property market, and she is a landlord herself. So and that was a nice little bonus for me, because within my letting agency, it's one of the things that I've always been proud of, is that we all have properties ourselves, so therefore we understand how we want to treat our tenants, our own tenants, so therefore we treat other people's tenants that way, and also we treat our landlords as if we own that property. So it was a nice bonus that she had that experience as well. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting, because if I go back to the early days of doing business, I didn't actually want to employ a staff member who had been on the high street, because I felt like they had bad habits. And now I've come full circle of like working with VAs, and they've got some property experience, and I'm like, oh, that's quite interesting. And I think the difference is because it's very admin based, and they crack on with a lot of you know, I would call it, even though they're low hourly rate tasks, they're still very important tasks to be done in the business. And yeah, I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said before about how she works for other clients as well. So, and because I think sometimes people are put off by the higher hourly rate of UK based ones, but they're not working full time. A lot of the time they're not, you're not on full time hours. So they certainly can be very efficient in whatever hours they work. So is she just working with you for your own kind of personal admin or admin for the business, or is she working with the letting agency? And do you have, is she the only one, or do you have more?
Yeah, so she is based with our letting agency, and I am going to be doing an article for yourselves, probably on the second or third one, where I'm going to be giving you examples of, because when I tell people what I pay my virtual assistant, people are like, oh my God, and they almost fall off their chair. But I tell you, it is better than employing a staff member. And I'm going to be doing an article on it and show the numbers, because once I show you the numbers, you will be excited too. So
go on. Can you tell us? Can you tell us what the hourly rate is?
So I paid my virtual assistant £35 an hour, and I can already tell people are going to be like, no way will I pay that. Just wait until the article comes out, because all will be revealed and explained, and it will change the way that you think about them, and you will go and get one. Definitely. I'm totally backing my UK VAs here, definitely.
But you're obviously very passionate about, having freed yourself from your own business and, looking to be able to scale. You can only do that when you're working on the business and those income generating tasks and, working on those sort of high value areas there. So what sort of things does she free you up from? And, how does that outsourcing work for you?
Yeah, so within the letting agency, she's doing a lot of the day-to-day tasks. So, and she's doing a lot of things like not just maintenance and managing current tenants, but all of the, anything that we advertise, she's advertising, she's taking the inquiries from that, she's dealing with the inquiries, sending out the app, everything until, from start to finish, she's doing within that. And she's also... what else does she do? Everything. She's amazing. And then going back to a previous question you asked as well about having multiple VAs. So the VA that I've got now, that's her role. So I've set her role. I'm not going to give her anything outside of that because I want her to focus. And then I have some other roles that are going to be filled by another VA. So partly of my social media and some other things to do with my networking. So I run a couple of networking events down in Cornwall. So she's going to be helping with that. So you could find a VA that would do it all, but I don't want my amazing letting agency VA being sucked somewhere else when, she's so good at what she does.
They're very different skill sets, aren't they? From admin to social media, and that's perhaps more of a creative role where you're creating content and creating posts and things, whereas admin is less creative. For people who are familiar with the wealth dynamics, there'd be very different profiles on the personality test there, and I think that is something that sometimes people make a mistake on, is trying to get one person, whether that's an employee in the UK or abroad, whoever it is, trying to kind of fit all of those tasks into one person. It often
and I think it's important to be honest as well. So like, for example, I found this VA for the letting agency, we get along really well, we're on the same wavelength, same morals, everything like that. And I don't think it would be fair X months later to be like, oh, you couldn't book this for me, or you couldn't do this for me, because we've already agreed what her role is going to be. And I don't think it's fair to do that. So I think, you should be open and honest with your VA up front, exactly what you want them to do, and then just stick with that.
And okay, so obviously you've freed up some more time and you're working on growing the business. So what's going on now? What's happening next?
So at the minute I'm working on my coaching side of things, my coaching business. So that is me working with property people and getting them to a point where I am at the minute with the business. So I'm doing that. And then also we're working on our own projects. So we're doing HMOs and commercial conversions. So that is the other side of our business as well.
You do like a turnkey service, am I right in thinking? For HMOs and sort of sourcing, is that right?
So with the letting agency, we manage the HMOs, and we try and give landlords what I call the single let life. but you've got the HMO cash flow. So that's what we try and do in the letting agency. So that's what that does. And then, yeah, so we at the minute via so we have somebody that helps us sourcing our deals direct to vendor, and he is going to be doing something next year for the property business, and that's part of the letting agency. I don't want to say the name in case I'm not allowed, but yeah, our property business that we have in Cornwall, he's going to be sourcing for clients and that sort of thing. But again, that's come from building a team and having a trusted person there who's intelligent and competent around that to do that. It's not something I want to do because I want to focus on letting agencies doing well, and that's great. And then I've got my coaching business, that's my focus, and then my own portfolio as well. So that's life pretty much tied up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't want to be sourcing for other clients as well. So, but somebody else will do that.
Yeah, I love that tagline, by the way, the single at life for HMO owners. So
it's what we dream about, isn't it? But HMO is so exciting. I mean, I'm a massive HMO lover, and it is so exciting. But I can tell you, for a lot of people who own HMOs, they do not want that life. They want the cash flow, but not that particular life. So that's what, and it
really, I think one of the most common sort of frustrations with people is trying to find a letting agency that can manage a HMO to the standard that they want, and that they are managed, but at the end of the day, like you say, they don't want the phone calls when someone's stolen someone's cheese, or the light bulb's gone, or whatever it is. So in terms of, I know you're really passionate about HMOs as well, so is the letting agency just focused on HMOs, or do you have like a mixture of single lets?
It's a mixture of single lets. So we have quite a lot of single lets as well. HMO is our passion because we being HMO owners ourselves, we know it inside out, and not every agent can say, oh yeah, I've got HMOs myself and love them. It's a special breed. It's like having an ugly child only a mother could love. That's what I feel about HMOs. Like, I love them, and people look at me strange and like, you love them? So, yeah.
Well, they do a fantastic job. That for many people, they are the quickest way to sort of the best regular cash flow, and for a lot of people, it's the right strategy for them in their stage where they're at in their property journey. So and do you find that because a lot of people, they don't want they struggle with letting it out to an agent, partly because of the experience they have with not doing a good enough job, but also a lot of the margin is in doing the work yourself. I'm sure, as you know, of rent to SA model as well. So do you think that having HMOs to bring an agent on really suits people who are like, they've got enough buffer in the deal, let's say?
Yeah, I think it depends on the cycle you're in your business. And I will do an article on this as well, so that people can have an idea of, let's say somebody's like, I only want to own 3 HMOs. That's all I want, ticks my financial boxes. That's what I want to do. Then I will do an example around that person and how they can still have a life and get some help with that portfolio. Because you wouldn't want to employ a staff member, and you wouldn't probably want to outsource to an agent unless you've got maybe another full-time employed income or something like that. So I'll do an example of that, and I'll also put some examples together of other scenarios of portfolio size as well. What's better, whether you bring it all in-house, or you employ a staff member, or you go high street agents. I'll do some examples for that, and the first 5 articles I'll put something in there.
Brilliant. So that'd be really useful, because I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It really depends what stage you are in your journey, and there can certainly be a hybrid, or a mix of different ways to manage your HMOs or your portfolio that suits where you're at right now. And I think it's important that people realize where they are right now and what they're looking to achieve. And one of my favorite sayings is that you can have anything but not everything. So you have to just pick, do you want the cash, or do you want that, the lifestyle? And, certainly at the early stages, you've got to pick which one. So
yeah, definitely.
Great. Okay, well, where can people find out more about what you're up to? Obviously, you've got the magazine article coming out in the new year, but are you more active on LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, so I'll send some links over to you. So I do my videos on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I also do post them in my Facebook. I've got a Facebook page and group, so you don't have to join the group if you don't want to, but it's on the page as well. So so I've got social media covered. So I will send you all the links, and I've got my podcast as well. So yeah.
Yes, tell us about your podcast. What's it called?
So it's called Outsourcing Your Property Business. And I just share little nuggets on there, and hopefully you implement them and you get your life back.
Great. Well, yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes to that, and people can follow up with you there. We'll look forward to reading your articles in the new year and seeing what happens next for you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and take care. And for anyone who is not yet a subscriber to the magazine, please click the link in the show notes for your free 30-day trial. We'll see you next time, guys.